When was the last time you felt truly connected? Not to your goals, but to something greater than yourself? We chase success, build careers, collect wins, but somewhere along the way, we lose the very thing that makes us feel alive, a sense of shared purpose. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What's good for the hive is good for the bee." And in today's fractured world, that saying cuts deeper than ever. We're told to look out for ourselves, to hustle alone, to keep pushing forward no matter who's left behind. But that mindset, that isolation, comes at a cost. Because no matter how strong we think we are, no one stays untouched when the world falls apart. When the systems we rely on crumble, when communities suffer, when hope fades from the people around us, eventually it reaches us too. That's why acting for the greater good isn't just noble. It's smart. It's sustainable self-protection. Marcus didn't write to sound wise. He wrote to survive, to remind himself and others. We are strongest when we stand together, and sometimes the first real step to changing the world is asking a simple question. Is this good for the hive? Forgiveness and helping others aren't signs of weakness. They're proof of inner strength. Forgiveness doesn't mean you're okay with what happened. It means you're no longer willing to carry the poison. It takes more courage to let go of bitterness than to hold on to it, because every time you forgive yourself or someone else, you clear space for something more powerful. Compassion, not pity, not superiority. Real human compassion that says, "I've felt pain, so I understand yours." Stoicism doesn't say life will be easy. It says life will test you, and how you respond defines who you are. You can lose money, you can lose status, you can even lose people. But if you hold on to kindness, if you keep giving even when you're hurting, you have never truly failed. Because in the darkest moments, helping someone else isn't just kind. It's rebellion against meaninglessness. It's how you shout back at the void, "I can still create value. I can still do good." No one escapes struggle. No one walks through life without falling. But Stoicism never demands perfection. It offers something better, a choice to rise, a choice to give, a choice to keep moving, not to prove your strength, but to become someone's light, a kind gesture, a patient word, a steady hand. These tiny moments may seem small to you, but they might be the thing that keeps someone else from falling apart. And in return, that moment might be the one that helps you hold on to your own light. Stoic philosophy isn't just written in ancient texts. It's lived in the everyday battles you fight. It lives in the moment you choose not to snap back when you're misunderstood. It lives in how you carry yourself when no one is watching, when things don't go your way, when life feels unfair. When you forgive, you're not giving in. You're letting go of what weighs you down. When you help others, even while you're hurting, you prove to yourself that you're not powerless. In a world that often feels cold, divided, and disconnected, even the smallest act of compassion is a declaration. I still believe in goodness. And here's the truth. Sometimes the way back to yourself isn't found in an answer. It's found in an action, not a grand speech, not some breakthrough moment, just a small act, a text to someone struggling, a moment of silence instead of a sharp word. These choices build something far stronger than success. They build meaning. Not all heroes wear armor. Some wear patience. Some wear understanding. Some wear silence. And they choose to keep showing up, not for applause, not for recognition, but because it's right. That's where the real strength lies. Not in being untouched by pain, but in how you rise in the midst of it. But what happens when the storm hits harder than you expected? When everything you trusted starts to fall apart, plans, people, even your own strength? That's when Stoicism becomes more than philosophy. It becomes your anchor. Because the first thing that often crumbles in chaos isn't the world outside. It's your inner peace. You feel it the moment life blindsides you. A sudden loss, a betrayal, a failure you didn't see coming. Emotions surge like a flood. Anger, fear, despair, and you feel like you're drowning. But this is the very space where Stoicism comes alive. It doesn't tell you to feel nothing. It tells you to pause, to recognize the space between what happens and how you respond. That space, that's your power. Most people never claim it. They react instantly. They yell. They shut down. They spiral. But you're learning to choose your response, to step into that pause and say, I feel this, but I will not be ruled by this. That's not weakness. That's mastery. Not suppression, but direction. You start small. You breathe. You ask, will this reaction help me grow or trap me? And each time you choose reason over rage, clarity over chaos, you place another stone in the foundation of your inner fortress, a place no one can shake, not betrayal, not failure, not loss, not even your own doubt. Continue when you're ready to keep building that strength. This inner fortress doesn't make you numb, it makes you resilient. It doesn't mean you stop feeling, it means you stop letting feelings control your life. When something breaks your heart, you still feel it, but you don't break with it. When you're betrayed, you still hurt, but you don't become bitter. And when you fail, you still stumble, but you rise without losing yourself. This is what Stoicism teaches, not to be untouched by the world, but to be unshaken by it. Because power isn't in pretending to be fine. It's in knowing that you can stand back up without needing everything to be perfect. The Stoics had a word for this, apatheia. Not apathy, but inner calm. Not ignorance, but emotional clarity. It means you stop giving the world the keys to your peace. You stop letting outside events dictate your inside world. And when you do, something incredible happens. You become steady, calm, grounded, even when life isn't. You don't need validation to feel worthy. You don't need control to feel safe. And you don't need everything to go right to move forward. And here's what's powerful. When you begin to live this way, something inside you shifts. You're no longer just surviving the chaos, you're transforming through it. Each challenge becomes a lesson, each setback a stepping stone. You're no longer asking, why is this happening to me? Instead, you ask, what can I learn from this? That shift in perspective is everything. Because most people go through life reacting impulsively, emotionally, destructively. But you're training yourself to pause, reflect, and respond with intention. That's real strength. Not the kind that shouts, but the kind that endures. Not loud, not dramatic, quiet and unbreakable. It's the strength of someone who's been through storms, but doesn't let storms decide who they are. And here's where it gets deeper. The more you master your own mind, the more you become a source of calm for others. Your presence becomes a steady light in a chaotic world. You speak less, but your words carry more weight. You don't react to conflict, you diffuse it. You don't fight to be heard, you listen deeply. You don't chase power, you embody it. And that's when you realize you're not just healing yourself, you're lifting others too. Because once you've built that kind of strength on the inside, the outside world loses its power over you. You stop needing everything to go right in order to feel peace. You stop waiting for the perfect moment to feel joy. You stop depending on approval to feel worthy. Instead, your calm becomes constant, your direction becomes clear, and your value becomes unshakable. That's the real secret. People think happiness is something that happens to them, but the truth is, happiness is something you build. Not all at once, not in some grand breakthrough, but slowly, deliberately, every single day by how you show up. It's in how you deal with loss. It's in how you respond when people hurt you. It's in how you handle the little frustrations, traffic, failure, disappointment, because that's where real transformation happens. Not in big moments, but in the ordinary ones. Now here's something most people overlook. The path to inner peace often begins with pain. I'll reveal the most important step at the end of this video. Pain has a way of waking you up. It cuts through the noise, strips away illusion, and forces you to confront what truly matters. Most people try to avoid it, numb it, run from it. But Stoicism teaches something radical, that pain isn't the enemy. Pain is the messenger. It reveals your attachments, your fears, your blind spots. And if you're brave enough to listen, it becomes your teacher. That heartbreak, it showed you what you value. That failure, it revealed where you were unprepared. That betrayal, it taught you who you can trust and who you can't. The Stoics didn't try to erase pain. They used it. They let it sharpen their character. Because here's the truth. You will suffer. That's part of life. But suffering can either break you or build you. And the difference comes down to one thing: how you respond. Not react, respond. There's a moment, a gap, between what happens and what you do. And in that moment, you have power. The power to pause, the power to choose, the power to shape your story instead of letting circumstances write it for you. But how do you build that kind of power? How do you stay calm when your world is crumbling? How do you find direction when you feel completely lost? The first thing you must understand is this: you are not your thoughts. Thoughts will come, some helpful, many destructive, but you are the observer, not the storm. The Stoics practiced this relentlessly. When fear appeared, they didn't run. When anger rose, they didn't explode. Instead, they watched. They questioned. They asked, is this useful? Is this true? That small pause, that single moment of awareness, is where self-mastery begins. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Let that sink in, because everything you fear, everything that overwhelms you, becomes smaller the moment you stop trying to control the external and start mastering the internal. That's the path. And it doesn't require perfection. It only requires practice. Daily, quietly, intentionally. When you're stuck in traffic and frustration bubbles up, breathe. That's practice. When someone insults you and you want to retaliate, pause. That's practice. When everything goes wrong and you want to scream or give up, stand still. That's practice. Each moment of restraint isn't weakness, it's a repetition. Like lifting weights. You're training your mind to stay clear even when life is not. And eventually something changes. You realize that chaos doesn't control you. Other people don't own your peace. Your mind is no longer a battlefield. It becomes a fortress. But here's where the suspense deepens, because there's something even more powerful than self-control. It's something subtle, often overlooked, but once you understand it, it transforms everything. The most powerful force the Stoics practiced, beyond endurance, beyond discipline, was intention. Not just reacting, but choosing, deliberately, consciously, every action, every word, every thought shaped not by habit, but by purpose. That's what sets a person apart. Not how they survive, but why they act the way they do. When you wake up, do you scroll mindlessly, or do you begin with a clear aim? When someone disrespects you, do you react like everyone else? Or do you pause and ask, what kind of person do I want to be right now? Intention is the quiet voice behind every decision, and it's powerful because it puts you back in the driver's seat. It reminds you you are not a victim of circumstance. You are a creator of character. Seneca once said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." That adversity you face, it's not a curse. It's your invitation to step up, to lead yourself, to show yourself what you're made of, not through loud victories, but through quiet choices. And yet many people still ask, but how do I stay consistent? That's the next key. Consistency doesn't start with motivation. It starts with a decision, not the loud emotional kind you make at 2 a.m. after watching a motivational video, but the quiet, committed kind you make when no one's watching, when you're tired, when you don't feel like it. True consistency is built in the dark, in the mornings you don't want to get up, in the conversations you don't want to have, in the moments you'd rather escape, but instead, you show up. The Stoics didn't wait to feel inspired. They trained their minds to act based on values, not emotions. Because emotions are unpredictable. Values are solid. You can't control how you feel when life hits you, but you can always choose how you respond. Discipline isn't harsh. It's clarity. It's knowing what matters to you and then showing up for it every single day. Even when the rewards are invisible, even when progress feels slow. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human being, not a perfect being, not a famous one, just a human being who does what needs to be done, not for applause, not for praise, but because it's right." This kind of consistency becomes a habit. That habit becomes identity, and that identity becomes power. Loss doesn't knock. It doesn't ask permission. It enters like a storm, uninvited, and leaves behind a silence that echoes louder than any noise. Whether it's the end of a relationship, the death of someone you love, or the collapse of a dream, it shakes you. Suddenly, what mattered yesterday feels distant. Familiar places now carry shadows. You question everything, your path, your strength, your purpose. But this is where Stoicism speaks with a voice calm enough to cut through the chaos. Not by telling you not to feel, but by showing you how to feel without being destroyed. Marcus Aurelius lost children, faced betrayal, ruled during plagues, and still he wrote, "If it is endurable, then endure it. If not, what use is complaining?" The Stoics weren't cold. They were clear. They understood that pain is inevitable, but suffering is often something we add. We replay the loss. We ask why. We try to undo the past with our minds, but Stoicism brings us back to the moment, back to what we can control. Because here's the truth, you don't heal by forgetting. You heal by facing it, with courage, with patience, with repeated acts of strength. Even if those acts are just breathing through one more difficult hour. The Stoics believe that adversity isn't an interruption to life. It is life. The challenge is not to avoid hardship, but to remain whole through it. And you do that by building your center so strong, no storm can break you. Continue, and I'll show you how small choices, made daily, build the strongest foundation for that kind of unshakable strength. You don't build strength by waiting for life to be easy. You build it by standing tall when life isn't. Every time you choose calm over chaos, patience over panic, you are forging a version of yourself that is not just surviving, but growing. The Stoics trained for difficulty not because they loved pain, but because they knew life wouldn't always be kind. They didn't pray for the storm to pass. They prepared to walk through it. And that's what you're doing now. Every setback you face is secretly offering you a question. Who are you becoming through this? Will you allow pain to close your heart, or will you use it to expand your depth? Will you let fear control you, or will you take the next step anyway? The Stoics believe that we are tested not to show our weakness, but to reveal our power. That doesn't mean you won't feel broken. It means you won't stay broken, because broken is a moment, not an identity. And when you accept that, your entire mindset shifts. You stop expecting life to be fair, and you start being fair in how you face life. You stop needing external control and start mastering internal response. It begins in silence, in the moment between a trigger and your reaction. That gap is your power. What you do in that space determines whether you repeat a cycle or rise above it. Continue, and I'll reveal how this mindset doesn't just protect you. It transforms you into someone others look to when their world starts falling apart. People won't always notice when you're struggling, but they'll feel the quiet strength in how you carry yourself. That's the power of Stoic practice. It doesn't shout, it doesn't beg for attention, but it radiates. When everyone else is losing their grip, the person who remains grounded becomes a guide. Not because they have all the answers, but because they've mastered one thing, themselves. And that mastery begins with a choice you get to make every single day. Do you let circumstances dictate your mindset? Or do you choose to show up with discipline, patience, and clarity? Most people wait for peace to come from the outside, when money's right, when people behave, when things go their way. But Stoicism flips that. It says, build the peace first. Make it so strong that nothing outside can break it. You don't need everything around you to be calm if you've trained your mind to stay calm within. You don't need the world to be easy if you become resilient enough to walk through its chaos. But here's the truth most don't want to hear. This isn't a one-time choice. It's daily work. It's how you breathe when pressure mounts. It's how you speak when anger rises. It's how you treat others when you're hurting. Every moment becomes your training ground. Every frustration becomes an opportunity to practice composure. Every disappointment becomes a space to practice perspective. And then something incredible happens. You realize that peace isn't a reward at the end of the road. It is the road. Continue, and I'll show you how this path becomes the foundation for real, lasting happiness. The kind no one can take from you. The kind of happiness that doesn't vanish when plans fall apart or when people misunderstand you. The kind of happiness that isn't based on loud celebrations, but on the quiet feeling of alignment. When your actions match your values, when your reactions reflect your growth, not your wounds. That's the Stoic way. It doesn't promise that storms won't come. It promises that you can learn to stand in the middle of one and not break. And that begins with a shift from asking, why is this happening to me? To, what can I do with this? Pain becomes the raw material. Struggles become tools. The chaos you once ran from becomes the very place where you build yourself. This mindset isn't natural. It goes against our instincts to seek comfort and avoid hardship. But comfort never built strength. Avoidance never built resilience. It's only when you lean into discomfort with awareness and intention that something powerful starts to take root. Imagine this. You're facing a moment that once would have destroyed your peace. But this time, instead of reacting with panic, you pause, you breathe, you reflect, and you respond, not perfectly, but consciously. That's not weakness. That's mastery in motion. That's proof you're becoming who you were meant to be. Because once you stop being ruled by every emotion, once you stop reacting out of habit and start responding out of clarity, you become a force, not in the aggressive, loud, or controlling way, but in a steady, unshakable way. People will notice, not because you preach, but because you embody, not because you have all the answers, but because your presence feels like calm in a storm. That's what happens when your inner world stops depending on outer noise. You see, the more you master your mind, the less you feel the need to control everything around you. You're no longer a slave to validation. You don't crumble when criticized. You don't beg life to go your way. You learn to walk through it with your head held high, no matter which direction the wind is blowing. And here's the most beautiful part. The stronger you become inside, the more you're able to lift others too. Not by fixing their problems, but by being a mirror, reminding them that they too have the power to choose how they respond, that they too can rise. That's how inner discipline becomes something bigger, Because real transformation doesn't shout, it whispers. It shows in the way you listen without rushing to judge, in how you breathe before reacting, in how you stand your ground when everything tries to pull you back into the chaos. That's when people start to ask, what changed? And the answer is simple: you did. Not all at once. Not because of some miracle, but because you chose to keep going, one small step at a time. That's the part most people overlook. They want the glow without the grind, the strength without the struggle. But Stoicism teaches us that strength comes through the struggle, not despite it. And the ones who rise are the ones who learn to see hardship as part of the training. Not as punishment, not as cruelty, but as a chance to forge something unbreakable inside. You won't always get it right. There will be days when the storm wins, when emotions spill over, when you say things you regret or feel like giving up. But listen carefully. Those moments don't mean you failed. They mean you're human. And the Stoic path was never about being perfect. It was about returning to the path each time you wander, recommitting, rebuilding, reclaiming your peace. And the more you do that, the more your pain becomes purpose. The more your wounds become your wisdom. You stop hiding the broken parts. You use them. You learn from them. And you help others carry their weight, not by taking it from them, but by walking beside them. Because sometimes the greatest gift you can give is your presence. Calm, grounded, whole. It starts with something so simple, most people overlook it. But make no mistake, this is where everything begins. The habit is this: every single morning, before the world grabs you, before the notifications flood in, before your mind gets hijacked by other people's noise, you sit, you breathe, you listen to your own mind, not to judge, not to fix, just to observe. Moment, quiet and still, is your anchor. It's where you remind yourself, I am not my thoughts. I am the one who watches them. That awareness, that's your first tool. Because once you can observe a thought without being pulled by it, you gain power. Power over anger. Power over fear. Power over the stories that once controlled you. And here's the truth. If you do this for just 5 minutes a day, really do it. You start to see how often your mind tries to trick you. It tells you you're not good enough, that you'll always feel like this, that you're too late, too broken, too far behind. But in that silence, you'll hear something else, a deeper voice, the one that says, keep going, you're growing. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, faced betrayal, war, loss, and sickness. Yet every morning he would write, not to entertain, not for others, but to strengthen his own mind. His journal, later called Meditations, wasn't meant for anyone else to read. It was his way of preparing for the day, by training his thoughts before the world could influence them. He would write things like, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Not to be dark, but to remind himself, life is fragile. Time is short. So why waste a single moment on anger? Why be bitter when he could be useful? Why chase praise when he could chase purpose? That's the second step. Write. Daily. Not on social media. Not for validation. Write for yourself. Ask, what am I afraid of today? What would I do if I were brave? What is within my control and what is not? This habit is your mirror, not for your face, but for your thoughts. And when you do it consistently, something shifts. You stop reacting to everything. You start responding with purpose. You start leading yourself, not just surviving the day, but shaping it. When life collapses around you, plans shatter, people leave, dreams dissolve, it's easy to believe you failed. But the Stoics had a different view. They believed that the test of character isn't when things are easy, but when everything falls apart. In the darkest hour, they didn't look outward for rescue. They turned inward for power, because that's the third step. Build your inner fortress. Imagine this, a place within you no chaos can touch. Not grief, not betrayal, not fear. That fortress is built every time you choose discipline over distraction, silence over rage, action over self-pity. When Epictetus lost everything, his freedom, his home, he didn't cry out in despair. He said, "I may not control the events, but I control myself." That is enough. Most people let circumstances decide their emotions. But you're training to be different. When you're hurt, feel it, but don't feed it. When you're wronged, breathe, then respond. Each time you pause instead of explode, you lay another brick in your inner fortress. And here's the secret. Strength doesn't mean you don't feel pain. It means the pain doesn't control you, because that brings us to the fourth step. Turn pain into purpose. Everyone suffers. Everyone. But not everyone transforms that suffering. Most let it consume them. They become bitter, closed, afraid. But the Stoic path offers another route, a quiet, powerful rebellion against despair. When something breaks you, you can either crumble with it or build something new from the pieces. And here's the truth most avoid. Your deepest pain can shape your strongest self. Think of Viktor Frankl, who survived the horrors of the Holocaust and later wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." He didn't escape pain, he refused to waste it. Every scar became a symbol of transformation. That's what Stoicism teaches. Don't just survive the fire, use it to forge something stronger. When you feel lost, ask yourself, what lesson is hiding in this moment? What strength is this pain trying to reveal? Instead of asking, why me, ask, what now? Purpose doesn't always come from dreams. It often comes from wounds. And sometimes the door to a new life only opens after the old one burns. Continue and I'll share the mindset that turns everyday struggle into unstoppable momentum. And that takes us to the fifth step. Build your inner compass. In a world full of noise, distraction, and opinion, the most powerful tool you'll ever have is a clear inner direction. Most people drift, pulled by trends, by other people's expectations, by fear. They react more than they choose. But Stoicism teaches you something different. Clarity comes from within. You don't need 1,000 voices telling you what matters. You need one voice, yours, trained through reflection, shaped by principle. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." That's not just philosophy. That's a call to arms. When you have an inner compass, you stop asking, what should I do? And start knowing, this is the right thing, no matter how hard. You become someone who acts from character, not convenience. Someone who doesn't flinch when tested. And that compass, it doesn't just keep you steady, it attracts others who are lost, looking for something real. Because nothing is more powerful than a person who knows who they are. Now continue, and I'll reveal the one mindset shift that can carry you through any storm. And that shift is this. Life is not happening to you. Life is happening for you. Every setback, every loss, every moment of confusion, it's not here to break you, it's here to build you. But only if you choose to see it that way. Most people ask, why me? Stoicism teaches you to ask instead, what now? Because when you stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances and start seeing yourself as a sculptor of character, everything changes. That's the moment you stop being reactive and start being resilient. You begin to use pain as fuel, failure as feedback, and struggle as training. You don't wish things were easier. You decide to become stronger. You don't need the storm to pass. You learn to stand tall in the rain. And when that happens, something powerful awakens inside you. You begin to realize that life doesn't owe you peace. It offers you the tools to build it. Day by day, choice by choice, you shape yourself into someone who is not controlled by the outside world, but centered in the inner one. Now continue, and I'll show you how to make your pain your power, because once you stop resisting reality and start working with it, even your deepest wounds can become your greatest strength. You stop asking the world to be fair and start asking yourself to be unshakable. That doesn't mean you won't feel pain. It means pain will no longer decide your direction. You'll still have hard days. You'll still face loss, but you'll rise, not by pretending everything is fine, but by choosing not to give up. And in that choice, there is power. Every time you pause instead of reacting, every time you forgive instead of holding a grudge, every time you choose action over excuses, you become wiser, calmer, more alive. And that's where we start to touch something rare. A life that isn't built on chasing highs, but on living with meaning. When you realize your purpose isn't to impress, but to impact, not to be loud, but to be real, you become the kind of person who doesn't break under pressure. You refine under pressure. It's the moment where everything feels too heavy, where your chest is tight, your thoughts are loud, and giving up feels easier than going on. That's the edge. That's where most people stop. But listen closely. That's the very place where transformation begins. Because if you can stay in that moment, if you can breathe through it, if you can choose to move forward even with shaking hands and a tired heart, you've already won. That's the real training. Not in comfort, not in clarity, but in chaos. It's in those dark moments when your mind screams, "I can't," and you quietly whisper back, "I will." That's where your future is rewritten. Not in some grand success story, but in the small, unseen moments where you refuse to let go. Where you picked up your broken pieces and said, "Let's try again." Because here's the truth most people never realize. You don't become strong by avoiding pain. You become strong by walking through it, consciously. Every hardship you endure is not just an obstacle. It's a lesson, a training ground, a forge. And what it's shaping is something unshakable inside you. Not the version of you that's perfect when life is easy, but the version that keeps walking when everything's falling apart. That's where real resilience is born. And no, you don't have to feel okay all the time. You're human. You will feel fear, doubt, heartbreak. But those aren't signs of weakness. They're reminders that you're alive. And if you're alive, you still have power. Power to choose your response. Power to rise again. Power to stand for something even when the world gives you every reason to fall. So when everything around you feels uncertain, ask yourself, what can I still control? And the answer is always the same. Your mind, your attitude, your next action. That's your anchor in the storm. And I will reveal the most important step at the end of the video. The world will keep throwing chaos your way. Broken plans, harsh words, unexpected losses. But the storm outside doesn't have to become a storm inside. When you master your response, you master your life. That's what Stoicism teaches us. Not to escape reality, but to face it with a mind that stays clear, calm, unmovable. And it's in the small moments that this strength is built. When someone insults you and you choose not to bite back. When everything's falling apart and you still take one step forward. When you feel like quitting, but decide to hold on just one more day. These aren't small. These are the victories no one sees, but they are the ones that define you. It's easy to be kind when you're happy. It's when you're in pain that real kindness becomes powerful. Because now it's not just a gesture, it's a choice, a statement. I won't let this break me. That's where your deepest strength lives. And the truth is, even when you feel empty, lost, numb, you're still growing. Healing isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just choosing not to scream, choosing to breathe, choosing to try again tomorrow. Every time you get back up, you become harder to knock down. That's what inner discipline does. It doesn't make life easier. It makes you stronger. And eventually the things that once shook you to your core, they don't anymore. Not because they've changed, but because you have. There's a moment when something painful happens where you have a choice. You can let it turn you bitter, or you can let it shape you into someone better. That's where Stoicism steps in, not to erase the pain, but to give you power within the pain. To remind you, you don't need perfect conditions to grow. You just need the will to keep going. And yes, there will be days when you feel like you're back at square one. Like nothing you do matters. But that's the illusion talking. Every act of self-mastery is a brick in your foundation. Even the quiet ones. Even the invisible ones. Think of it like this. When a tree faces the wind every day, its roots grow deeper. That's what adversity does to you. If you let it, it doesn't just hurt you, it grounds you. It makes you unmovable. And over time, without even noticing, the person who used to break under pressure becomes the person others turn to when the pressure is on. You start to carry a calm that isn't forced. It's earned. Not through pretending you're okay, but through learning to stay okay even when you're not. This is the shift Stoicism creates. It doesn't ask you to suppress your emotions. It teaches you to walk with them without letting them lead you. Sadness visits, but it doesn't make the decisions anymore. Anger shows up, but it no longer burns everything down. And in that quiet control, something incredible happens. You begin to build peace that can't be stolen, because when peace depends on other people, it's fragile. When it depends on perfect outcomes, it's unreliable. But when it lives inside you, anchored in how you think, how you act, how you show up each day, it becomes unshakable. And this is where many people ask the same question. What's the point of all this inner training if I still feel pain, if life still hurts? I will reveal the most important step at the end of the video. The answer lies not in avoiding pain, but in transforming what pain means to you. Most people experience struggle and see it as a signal to stop, as if discomfort means something is wrong. But the Stoic sees it differently. Pain is not a punishment, it's a teacher, and every hardship becomes a hidden doorway to deeper strength if you choose to walk through it. You lose a job, but gain clarity on what truly matters. You face betrayal, but grow unshakable in your values. You feel abandoned, but learn to stand taller, alone. That's not just survival, that's evolution. Think about it. A tree doesn't grow strongest in perfect weather. It grows deeper roots during storms. And so do you. That's why happiness, in the Stoic sense, isn't about constant pleasure. It's about becoming someone who's no longer at the mercy of the world. Someone who can be disappointed and still hopeful, tired and still kind, lost and still steady. It doesn't happen overnight, but the small things, the pause before reacting, the breath before judging, the silence before responding. These are the building blocks of inner freedom, and the more you practice them, the more they become who you are. Not because you're trying to be perfect, but because you're committed to something more powerful than perfection, growth. And growth, real growth, isn't always visible. It's not flashy. No one claps for you when you choose not to snap in anger. There's no applause when you forgive someone who never apologized. But in those moments, you're winning a battle inside that no one else can see. You become the kind of person who doesn't just survive life's chaos, but brings order to it. The kind of person others lean on, not because you're loud, but because you're solid, steady, grounded. That's the kind of strength Stoicism builds, a quiet, unshakable core. And from that place, something unexpected happens. You start to help others, not by preaching, not by fixing their lives, but just by showing them, through your presence, your actions, your stillness, that it's possible to hurt and not hate, to fall and still rise, to be broken and still love. You don't need to be perfect to inspire someone. You just need to be real. You just need to keep going. Because in this life, where everything is temporary, pain, joy, fame, failure, what lasts is who you become. And the person you become is shaped most not by the good days, but by how you choose to show up when life is at its hardest. Remember, the most important step is coming. But before we get there, and here's the truth, most people give up right before the shift happens. They quit when it still feels dark, when the road seems endless. But what they don't realize is that the pain, the silence, the stillness, that's the space where transformation is quietly unfolding. It's the cocoon before the wings. Every time you decide not to run away from discomfort, you're building something far greater than comfort. You're building depth. You're learning how to carry peace inside you, even when the world outside is chaos. That is power, not control over others, but over yourself, over your emotions, over your reactions, over your story. And with that power, you don't just survive, you create. You create space for others to heal. You create calm where there was once noise. You create a life that isn't perfect, but profound. And through it all, something begins to take root inside you. Meaning. Real, unshakable meaning. Not the kind sold to you by ads or applause, but the kind you earn. The kind that lasts. Because you didn't numb yourself. You faced it. You felt it. And you rose anyway. You rose not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. And this kind of strength doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. It shows up in the way you breathe through difficulty, in the way you treat others with grace, even when you're hurting. It's the strength of someone who has mastered the hardest battlefield of all, the mind. But here's where it gets deeper. Once you've learned to carry yourself through pain, you begin to see others differently. You stop judging so quickly. You start noticing the silent battles people are fighting. You listen more. You help more. Not because you have to, but because you get it. You've been there. And suddenly your presence becomes medicine. Your calm becomes contagious. Your resilience becomes a lighthouse for someone else who's still lost in the storm. That's the gift of inner mastery. It doesn't just change you, it changes the space around you. You stop chasing perfection and you start practicing presence. You realize that happiness was never about reaching some final destination. It was about learning to walk the path with awareness, with acceptance, and with intention. The world around you might still be chaotic, but you no longer depend on that chaos to determine your peace. You become anchored, not in control, but in clarity. And here's the part most people miss. Resilience is not the absence of pain. It's the decision to rise despite it. Every day you choose calm over rage, forgiveness over bitterness, discipline over impulse. You are training something sacred inside you. And one day, without even realizing it, you'll look back and see that the storm didn't break you. It built you. I will reveal the most important step at the end of the video. And that brings us to one of the most overlooked truths of Stoicism. You are not your emotions. You experience them, but they do not define you. You can feel overwhelmed and still act with strength. You can be afraid and still move forward. You can feel lost and still take the next right step. What Stoicism teaches isn't to become a stone. It teaches you to become unshakable. That even when the winds of change howl and the waves of hardship crash, you remain centered because you've built your peace from the inside out. Not by avoiding life, but by embracing it with courage and clarity. And here's the twist. Not everyone will understand this journey. Some will see your calm and mistake it for coldness. Some will witness your restraint and call it weakness. But the truth is, it takes more strength to remain kind in a cruel world. It takes more courage to forgive than to hate. It takes more power to help than to hurt. And when you choose that path, the harder path, you begin to shape not just yourself, but the world around you. You become a quiet force, a steady presence, a person others can lean on when everything else is falling apart. That's the hidden beauty of Stoicism. It doesn't just help you survive, it helps you become someone who helps others survive too. A light in the dark, a calm voice in the storm. And you do that not through grand speeches or heroic acts, but through small, consistent decisions made every day. To hold your tongue when anger rises, to breathe before reacting, to choose understanding over judgment, to respond with love, even when you're hurting. Because every time you do that, you're not just getting through the moment, you're training your soul. You're becoming stronger in a way the world can't take away. You're not building fake strength, the kind that depends on winning or looking good. You're building real, quiet, inner power. And here's the truth that most people miss. That kind of strength changes lives, not just yours, but everyone who crosses your path. You become a mirror of what's possible, a reminder that there's still goodness, still courage, still peace in the world. All because you chose not to be ruled by your emotions, but to guide them. Not to chase approval, but to live with intention. You don't need to fix everything or have all the answers. You just need to keep showing up. Keep choosing to pause instead of explode. Keep choosing clarity over chaos. That's what Stoicism is really about. It's not cold, it's not heartless, it's full of quiet fire. It's a way to stay grounded even when everything around you is shaking. And over time, that grounding becomes your greatest asset. Because when you're not easily moved, you're not easily broken. And when you're not easily broken, you become someone others lean on, not because you pretend to be perfect, but because your calm gives them hope. In a world where everyone is reacting, shouting, rushing, you become the person who responds with intention. You slow down, take a breath, and choose your next move, not out of fear, but from a place of strength. This isn't easy. It's training. And just like training the body, the mind needs repetition, patience, and perseverance. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. One day you'll look back and realize, I used to panic in moments like this. Now I stay calm. And that's proof. You've grown. You'll begin to notice that the storms outside don't shake you the same way anymore. You still feel, but you don't collapse. You still struggle, but you don't get lost in it. That's the power of inner training. It's not about becoming numb or pretending life doesn't hurt. It's about becoming someone who feels everything and still chooses to act from clarity, not chaos. Over time, this quiet strength becomes your greatest ally. It helps you navigate not just the big moments, but the tiny daily trials, traffic jams, bad news, misunderstandings, delays, the moments that used to ruin your entire day. Now just become a passing thought because you've trained your mind not to be a slave to every emotion that visits. You are no longer reacting, you are responding. And that difference is everything. One is chaos, the other is choice. One is being dragged by life. The other is walking through it on your terms. This shift doesn't happen in one day. It's built in silence, in solitude, in moments when no one's watching. It's built every time you pause instead of explode, every time you choose patience over panic. That's when you start to notice a new kind of strength rising within you. Not loud, not boastful, but calm, grounded, and real. It's the strength of someone who's faced storms and still knows where their anchor lies. The world will keep testing you, throwing distractions, noise, and judgment your way. But when your foundation is solid, those things no longer decide your worth. You do, And once you realize that, you stop chasing approval, stop fearing rejection, and stop comparing your life to others because you now understand that peace isn't found in the eyes of others. It's found in the steadiness of your own heart. Even when things go wrong, you don't fall apart as easily because you've built something stronger inside, something no storm can shake, and it's in those small, quiet victories, choosing peace over rage, courage over fear, discipline over impulse, that you begin to transform, not into someone emotionless, but into someone who feels deeply and still chooses wisely. That's where your freedom begins. Because if the world can no longer control your inner state, then no storm can sink you. You may bend, but you will not break. This is where real power lives, not in controlling others, but in mastering yourself. When you can remain centered while the world spins in chaos, when you can be kind while others choose cruelty, when you can hold on to purpose even when life tries to pull it away, that's when you're no longer just surviving. You're living with meaning, because life will test you. It will pull you in every direction, whispering lies that you're not enough, that you're alone, that it's pointless. But every time you choose to pause instead of react, to breathe instead of break, you prove those lies wrong. You're not powerless. You're becoming someone unshakable. Someone who doesn't just endure, but transforms pain into purpose. Every storm you survive quietly builds a strength the world can't see, but you feel it in how you walk, in how you speak, in how you face the day without needing applause. The world doesn't need louder people. It needs deeper ones. People who have faced the worst and still choose compassion. People who fall and rise without fanfare because their mission is not to impress, but to live with purpose. These people become unshakable, not because life spared them, but because they stopped waiting for life to be easy. They learn that peace isn't found in the absence of problems. It's found in the presence of clarity. When you know who you are, when you stop chasing validation, you become free. And with that freedom comes power, not over others, but over yourself. You begin to choose your battles wisely. You stop arguing to be right and start listening to understand. You no longer react just to defend your ego. You respond with calm because your peace is no longer up for negotiation. That is inner strength, not loud, not dramatic, just steady, quiet, unbreakable. When you wake up and realize you're no longer a prisoner of every mood, every opinion, every fear, that's the moment you've stepped into power. The world might still be chaos, but inside you've built something solid. A mind that doesn't break when life does. And this strength, this calm, is what begins to reflect outward. You're no longer just surviving. You're starting to shape your reality from within. People will notice it too. Not always with praise, but with quiet respect. They'll see how you don't panic when others do, how you don't lash out when provoked, how you don't crumble when things fall apart. This isn't pretending to be strong. This is real strength, the kind that doesn't need an audience, the kind that's earned, not gifted. Continue. Do not give too much space unnecessary. And here's something powerful. When others see you holding your ground, staying kind, staying calm, they begin to believe they can do it too. You become a mirror of what's possible, not by preaching, but by simply living with intention. It's not about being perfect. You will fall. You will struggle. But if you keep coming back to your values, your discipline, your sense of purpose, then every setback becomes fuel, not failure. Every fall becomes a step. That's how you start to walk a path that feels real, not driven by ego, not shaped by comparison, but grounded in something deeper. Strength that doesn't need to shout. You start seeing challenges not as curses but as invitations. Every hard moment becomes a chance to sharpen your focus, to train your mind, to test your heart. And it's in these moments, especially the quiet, painful ones, that the seeds of real happiness are planted. Not happiness built on what happens outside you, but happiness built on who you are inside. Unshakable, peaceful, whole, because real peace doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't need applause or validation. Real peace is silent, but it echoes in everything you do. When someone tries to provoke you and you choose calm, when life pushes you down and you rise slowly, without complaint, when the world misunderstands you, but you remain true to yourself, that's when you know you're no longer controlled by the outside. You've begun to master the one thing that truly matters, yourself. And in that self-mastery, you find something rare, a type of happiness that cannot be stolen. It's not the loud victories that define you, but the quiet choices you make when no one's watching. When you're exhausted but still choose to move forward. When you feel lost but don't give in to despair. When you're hurt but you don't lash out, that is power. And the more you choose it, the more natural it becomes. Like a muscle trained over time, your mind gets stronger with every test. Every setback becomes a stepping stone. Every failure a lesson. Every criticism a mirror showing you where you're still growing. And eventually you stop asking, when will life get easier? Instead, you start saying, I'm getting stronger. You stop trying to control what you can't and start owning what you can. Your attitude, your actions, your response. That shift, it changes everything. You begin to realize that real strength isn't about pretending you're never hurt. It's about not letting the hurt control you. It's not about being emotionless. It's about not being ruled by emotion. True Stoicism isn't coldness. It's clarity. It's the ability to feel everything without being destroyed by anything. When someone criticizes you and you pause instead of reacting, that's self-mastery. When life falls apart and you keep showing up, that's resilience. And when you look in the mirror and know you're living by your values, that's unshakable confidence. Not the kind that needs applause or validation, but the kind that stands tall in silence. And here's the truth. You won't feel that every day. Some days will be messy. Some moments will test everything you've built. But each time you choose discipline over impulse, reflection over reaction, progress over perfection, you're building a version of yourself that can't be shaken. You're becoming someone forged in fire, someone who doesn't just survive storms, but walks through them, calm, centered, clear. Do not give too much space unnecessary. And when you're walking through those storms, remember this. The world doesn't need perfection. It needs presence. It needs people who've been through darkness and still choose to be light. People who don't need to shout to be heard because their actions speak louder than any words. That's what Stoicism shapes you into. A quiet force, a steady flame in chaos. And the beauty of this path is that you don't need to be extraordinary to walk it. You don't need status or wealth or even recognition. You just need the courage to begin, to choose one moment at a time, one response, one breath. That's all it takes. Self-mastery isn't about becoming someone else. It's about returning to who you really are underneath all the noise. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be. And here's what most people miss. When you start living like this, intentionally, calmly, honestly, you start to help others do the same. Not by preaching, but by being. Your presence becomes a lighthouse. Not everyone will notice it. Not everyone will understand it. But those who are lost in their own storms will feel it. Your stillness, your steadiness. Your inner peace speaks loudly in a world that's always shouting. That's the gift you offer when you train your mind. Not just peace for yourself, but peace that radiates to others. And that brings us to something deeper. You might ask yourself, what is all this training really for? Why discipline the mind? Why practice restraint? What's the real goal? The truth is, the answer has been the same for centuries: to find happiness that can't be taken away. Not the fleeting kind that depends on perfect days or praise, but the kind rooted deep within. And in the next part, I'll reveal the most important step to building that kind of unshakable happiness, the step most people overlook. So keep going. This journey isn't over. It's only just beginning. People often believe happiness is something to be found out there, somewhere, waiting in the perfect job, the ideal partner, the dream house. But the Stoics knew better. They taught that real happiness is not found. It's cultivated. It's not about chasing a feeling, but about becoming someone who can feel peace even in chaos. Marcus Aurelius said, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." That quote alone can change how you see everything. Because if happiness begins in the mind, then the most important thing you can do is master it. Think about it. When the world breaks you down, when people disappoint you, when your plans fall apart, what remains? Only your ability to respond. And this is where your training begins to show. If you can face pain without panic, setbacks without despair, criticism without losing your center, that is power. That is the kind of power that doesn't shout but whispers, "I am okay," no matter what happens. And once you reach that level, something incredible begins to unfold. Your strength doesn't just carry you, it carries others. Your peace becomes a light for those in darkness. Your calm becomes a compass for those who are lost. But this doesn't happen overnight. It happens slowly, moment by moment, choice by choice. Each time you resist the urge to lash out, each time you breathe instead of break, each time you choose silence over shouting, you grow stronger, not louder, not harder, but deeper, more rooted, more stable, like a tree whose roots dig further into the earth with every storm. The branches may shake, but they don't fall, because the foundation is firm. And that's exactly what self-mastery is, a quiet, steady building of inner strength. You might not see it right away. The world certainly won't applaud you for it, but over time you'll notice that the things that once shook you no longer hold power over you. A rude comment won't ruin your day. A delay won't destroy your peace. Even heartbreak won't be able to steal your identity. This is what it means to be free, not free from pain, but free from being controlled by it. And that kind of freedom doesn't just help you survive, it helps you lead, inspire, uplift, without even trying. Because the moment you stop being ruled by your impulses, you start to lead by example. Not through grand speeches or dramatic gestures, but through how you live, how you respond, how you carry yourself even when no one's watching. Real power is quiet. It doesn't shout to prove itself. It simply is. And the more you train your mind to stay calm in chaos, the more your presence becomes a calm in other people's storms. That's when transformation begins, not just in you, but around you. You become the person others look to when everything feels like it's falling apart. Not because you have all the answers, but because you've trained yourself not to collapse under pressure. And here's the truth. Life will test you again and again, through disappointment, through betrayal, through loss. But each time you get a chance to decide, will this break me or build me? And it's not about winning every battle. It's about showing up again and again, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard, because that's where growth lives. Not in the easy moments, but in the ones that stretch you, bruise you, even shake you to your core. Every time you choose patience over rage, reflection over impulse, persistence over despair, you're forging something unbreakable inside you. The Stoics called this virtue, but you can call it your foundation, your inner armor, your true strength. And it doesn't happen overnight. It's a daily choice, a commitment to be better, Not for applause, not for recognition, but because you've decided to live on purpose, with intention, with clarity. And when you start showing up that way, something amazing happens. You stop chasing happiness because you realize happiness was never out there. It's in how you live, how you think, how you choose to face each day, even the painful ones, especially those, because those are the days that shape you most. The quiet battles, the silent victories, the small moments where you could have broken but didn't. That's where real strength is born, not in the absence of struggle, but in your response to it. The Stoics never promised a smooth road. They promised that if you trained your mind, you'd be ready for anything. You'd meet failure without collapse. You'd face loss without losing yourself. You'd suffer without becoming bitter. And that right there is a kind of freedom the world can't touch. You become grounded, calm, steady, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. And now we arrive at the heart of it all, the truth that echoes through centuries of Stoic wisdom. Happiness isn't found. It's built. It's not a prize waiting at the finish line. It's not handed to you by luck or taken away by loss. It's something you forge moment by moment through how you choose to live, especially when life doesn't go your way. You don't need to wait for the perfect day, the perfect job, the perfect relationship. You already have everything you need, right now, inside you. The discipline to pause before reacting, the strength to rise after falling, the wisdom to stop chasing what you can't control and focus on what you can. That's where true peace begins, not in some distant future, but in your very next choice. So next time life shakes you, remember this. You are not powerless. You are not broken. You are becoming, bit by bit, day by day, stronger, wiser, unshakable. And that is the greatest freedom a human being can know. If this video resonated with you, if it gave you a moment of clarity, strength, or peace, then like it. Follow us for more daily wisdom that helps you build your inner fortress, and subscribe so you never miss a chance to grow stronger from the inside out. Remember, Stoic philosophy isn't just for the storms. It's a way of walking through life with courage, with clarity, with purpose. And every time you choose that path, you change not just your life, but the world around you. Until next time, stay grounded, stay strong, stay free,